Effective from 12:01am, Tuesday, December 8, Victoria and New South Wales will be categorised as very low risk under our control borders.
Tonight, families reunited for the first time in months after Western Australia's controversial hard border came down. But Mark McGowan has warned he won't hesitate to bring it back if cases emerge in the eastern states. Details coming up shortly. Also tonight, a 90-year-old woman becomes the first person in the UK to receive Pfizer's newly approved coronavirus vaccine, as the PM hints that a vaccine could arrive in Australia before March. And later, an 18-year-old man charged with terror offences, but there's new questions tonight over whether de-radicalisation programs could actually be used as breeding grounds for terrorist groups. Our special report coming up. Good evening. Dozens of families have been reunited for the first time in more than 6 months after Western Australia's hard border came down. Travellers from New South Wales and Victoria no longer need to spend 2 weeks in quarantine when they arrive, although they'll still have to undergo health checks and fill out COVID-19 declarations. But WA Premier Mark McGowan has been quick to warn he won't hesitate to shut it down again if more cases of community transmission appear in the eastern states. Reporter Lincoln Holmes has more.
It's been one of the most controversial coronavirus restrictions in Australia.
It has been a successful policy.
But in WA, politics is at play.
But now WA's hard border has officially come down.
Effective from 12:01am, Tuesday, December 8, Victoria and New South Wales will be categorised as very low risk under our control borders.
But Australians are just happy to be reunited with family, some they haven't seen in months, others in years.
It feels amazing.
With tears and hugs and also laughter at the airport to greet families from right across Australia, whether they were already in Perth and travelling to Victoria, or whether from Victoria or in another interstate travelling to Perth.
It's great to have you on board, and it's great to have the borders opening, and hopefully they'll stay open.
Families are also happy to spend Christmas reunited together. Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
A 90-year-old woman has become the first person in the UK to receive Pfizer's newly approved coronavirus vaccine, kicking off a mass immunisation program. It came as PM Scott Morrison hinted that a vaccine could arrive here in Australia before the earlier scheduled date of March. Reporter Connor Our4K has the details.
This is what devastation, defeat, looks like. 11 months of diligent and indefatigable work, ultimately failing to pay dividends.
It's a very sad time, but also we're very proud of what we have achieved.
On Friday, the federal government cancelled its $1 billion order for the UQ-CSL vaccine, and with it, our hopes of a locally made COVID vaccine were dashed.
It was a very, very good technology. It was looking like it was going to make antibodies, and it probably would have worked very well as a vaccine.
Stage 1 clinical trials showed the University of Queensland vaccine was safe and effective. In fact, it outperformed other candidates when it came to protecting the elderly. So what's prompted this monumental about-face? The federal government feared public confidence in the UQ vaccine would be undermined after the jab caused some trial participants to return a false positive for HIV. The scientists used a HIV antibody in their molecular clamp technology, which provided the false positive test result.
Our feeling was it was too experimental a technology to be rolled out.
UQ-CSL was supposed to supply Australia with 51 million doses, more than any other provider. To compensate for the shortfall, Australia has secured an extra 20 million doses of the Oxford vaccine and 11 million more of the Novavax jab. In the UK, where the historic world-first rollout of the Pfizer vaccine began last week, public confidence has taken a hit after 2 recipients, each with a history of severe allergies, suffered an anaphylactoid reaction, symptoms of which include a rash and breathlessness.
We know from the very extensive clinical trials that this wasn't a feature.
Tens of thousands of Britons have now been inoculated. The world is watching. The US is already following in the UK's footsteps. An FDA panel recommended the approval of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use in the US, meaning a rollout there could be imminent.
We have already begun shipping the vaccine to every state and zip code in the country. The first vaccine will be administered in less than 24 hours. The governors decide where the vaccines will go in their state and who will get them first.
Like the UK, the first US patients will be frontline workers and aged care residents. This 90-year-old UK grandmother was patient A, the first person in the world to receive the COVID vaccine outside of clinical trials. Despite the UQ vaccine termination, it's been revealed Australia could receive the jab earlier than the promised March rollout date. V-Day for Australia could come as early as next February. Fortunately, Australia can afford to wait. Other countries can't.
As I've said from the beginning, a vaccine will vanquish the virus and return life back to normal. The pandemic may have begun in China, but we are ending it right here in America.
Trials of the controversial cashless welfare system will continue after the federal government failed to make it permanent in some communities. The scheme means that 80% of an individual's welfare payments get quarantined on a card that can't be used to gamble or purchase alcohol. The plan was to make the card permanent in parts of South Australia, Queensland and WA, but will now only continue trials for the next 2 years after a bill was passed with the support of One Nation but opposed by Labor, the Greens and Independent Senators Jackie Lambie and Rex Patrick, while Centre Alliance Senator Sterling Griff abstained. The government has denied claims the program is racist, despite the opposition saying it disproportionately impacted Indigenous Australians, who in some places where the trial is happening make up more than 75% of the population. Overseas now, in all 50 US states as well as Washington DC have now certified their results from the presidential election, and the Electoral College will vote next week. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's son Hunter has revealed that the US Attorney's Office in Delaware is investigating his tax affairs. US correspondent Jackson Gosnell has more.
Well, Leo, all 50 states have certified their election results. However, many are very upset about the outcome of this election, and they say that there was widespread voter fraud, including the president. He tweeted many times over the course of the last few days, disputing the results of the election where Joe Biden was named the winner. Now, many states have joined in a lawsuit trying to get a different result from what was originally presented as it relates to the election. President-elect Joe Biden, though, is hard at work trying to quickly get his team assembled before taking over in January. Meanwhile, the coronavirus crisis continues to intensify with more cases. I'm here in South Carolina, where today we reported our highest number of daily cases yet since the beginning of the pandemic. Epidemiologists as well as state and local officials across many states are urging people to be physically distanced of at least 6 feet and also to wear a mask when in public. We'll, of course, continue to monitor the latest and bring you up to date right here on 6 News. I'm reporting in the U.S. I'm Jackson Gosnell. Back to you.
And staying in the US, new data collected by Johns Hopkins University has revealed that more people have died from coronavirus on a single day than on 9/11. Over 3,000 people died from the disease on Wednesday local time, which is more than the 2,977 killed during the September 11 attacks. West America experts also fear that America will begin to see a surge in cases following Thanksgiving due to the amount of family gatherings held, despite countless warnings from authorities. It came as another high-profile celebrity tested positive for the virus, Ellen DeGeneres making that announcement on social media, but adding that she's feeling fine. Production on her talk show, The Ellen Show, has been paused until January, but there's plenty of concern over whether anyone in her audience or crew has tested positive. The show initially stopped having an audience when the outbreak first began, but then moved to having fans virtually added into the seats, with only a few dozen people allowed in person. The Minneapolis City Council has voted to cut almost $8 million from its police budget, over $10 million Australian dollars, in the wake of the death of George Floyd. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune reports that the money that's been reduced will be moved to other areas, including financing mental health crisis teams, but staffing projections of 888 officers for the police department will be maintained. Mayor Jacob Frey said the move represented a defining moment for the city, saying, quote, "There are good reasons to be optimistic about the future in Minneapolis." A majority of the city council had actually supported disbanding the entire police force after a police officer was filmed kneeling on George Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes, but the proposal later stalled. An 18-year-old from Albury has been charged with terror offences for allegedly escalating online behaviour. Police alleging tonight that he had an extreme right-wing ideology and had shown support for a mass international casualty event, which now raises questions about potential radical right-wing terrorism reaching our shores. And we do warn you that some of the images and themes in this report may be disturbing for some viewers.
A mosque in Christchurch. A grocery store in El Paso, a protest in Charlottesville. All recent radical right terror attacks, and with an anti-terror arrest in Albury for what police allege was an 18-year-old supporting far-right mass killings, questions have been raised about the rise of the radical right.
The male that we've arrested has an extreme right-wing ideology. A couple of days ago, what we observed was an escalation in the tone, which went to a support of a mass casualty event and potentially his involvement in that event.
Incidents of far-right extremism in the West are still disproportionately contained to the United States. Since 2002, 167 incidents occurred in the US, with 113 deaths. The reasons for far-right extremists are many, from global leaders supporting far-right groups
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by,
to lone wolf attackers feeling disenfranchised with society. It is a serious issue. In Australia, an ASIO threat assessment sent to security professionals in May said that COVID-19 has reinforced an extreme right-wing belief in the collapse of society. The coalition government has also launched an inquiry into right-wing extremism. The Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security will run the inquiry, which will examine the nature, extent and threat of extremist movements in Australia. The inquiry was announced just days before the Albury arrest.
Any extremism, left wing, right wing, we don't want to see it in this country. We are a free and democratic, loving country, and we need to stay that way.
So, Leo, I want to stress this with a capital S. Extremists do not represent the large majority of a group. So the far right do not represent the right in any way, shape or form. The coalition, no doubt, Scott Morrison and members of the coalition would denounce right-wing extremists at the drop of the hat. It should also be mentioned that as we do talk about the right-wing extremism, our country is, the majority of it is right-leaning. We only need to look at the polls for that. Scott Morrison has a 68% approval rating. So while we do often see Scotty from Marketing trending, the large majority of Australians, dare say the silent majority of Australians, do support the Prime Minister. The coalition 51 to 49 on the two-party preferred basis. That's important to keep in mind when we are talking about right-wing extremism. And of course, extremism is not just related to the right. The President of the United States is continuing to say that Antifa is a left-wing organisation. It should also be mentioned as a side note that the United States was in fact Antifa. They were anti-fascist in World War II when they fought Nazi Germany. Nonetheless, the President of the United States does see that as a problem. There have been a number of isolated incidents of Antifa protesters, extremists, and a number of fatalities occurring there. But the biggest statistic I want to give you tonight when we are talking about right-wing terrorism, of course that is a concern exemplified by that arrest in Albury, but in 2017 in the Middle East, 10,000 people died from terrorism. In South Asia, 7,000 people died from terrorism. In North America, 124 people died from terrorism. And in Australasia, only 4 died from terrorism. Leo?
Alright, Jack Hahn live for us tonight. Thank you. A high-profile breakfast TV host has been stood down for 6 months after breaching her COVID-19 bubble a day before a planned broadcast from a coronavirus vaccination ward. Sky News UK's Kay Burley reportedly attended 2 restaurants and a private social gathering in violation of Britain's COVID-19 restrictions and her own company policy. She will be stood down with pay for 6 months, apologising to colleagues in an email, saying, quote, "I'm an idiot." Veteran presenter Adam Bolton told The Guardian that Sky had worked very hard during the COVID-19 crisis and has taken a clear line about public safety, adding that something like this could underline the importance of that. Staff on Burley's breakfast program are set to be stunned by the news, but senior staff reportedly had no other choice but to impose a severe punishment. Sky News has so far not commented on the specific breaches, but did acknowledge that rules were broken. Time magazine has named Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as their person, or rather persons, of the year. The projected winners of the US election follow in the footsteps of Barack Obama and Donald Trump, who were named person of the year in 2012 and 2016 respectively. Trump, who has been on the shortlist every year since he became president, was one of the finalists this year, as well as Dr. Anthony Fauci and, more broadly, the frontline workers and the movement for racial justice. Do you agree with the choice or choices? Let us know in the comment section below. A woke Santa has been fired from an Illinois mall after refusing a 4-year-old boy's request for a Nerf gun for Christmas. Take a look.
No guns. Nerf gun? No, not even a Nerf gun. No, if your dad wants to get it for you, that's fine, but I can't bring it to you. But what else would you like? Lots of other toys. There's Legos, there's bicycles, there's cars and trucks. What do you think? What do you think? It's okay if your dad...
The boy's mother has told Fox News that she respects the choice some parents make not to have Nerf guns in their home, but added she was taken aback and not prepared for the reaction. Since the video went viral, that Santa has been fired, and a new mall Santa has given the boy a Nerf gun for Christmas. Finally tonight, you probably know Matthew Guy as the former leader of the Victorian Liberal Party, the MP for the Bulleen electorate, and the state's shadow minister for finance. But what you may not know is that he's also infamous for blocking dozens of people on Twitter, which surprisingly included myself. Now, I say surprisingly, as I have never interacted with him online, at least before this. Now, when I found out the guy had blocked me, I posted about it and got plenty of reaction from many of you telling me your stories of being blocked without any reason. Now, Lachlan Kennedy, a great journalist from Channel 10, and full credit to him for getting a lot of attention on this story, he retweeted my post and basically asked in it, why would an MP block a journo, especially someone who's trying to do a story, and without reason. He put a call out to another 10 journo here in Melbourne, Simon Love, who said he'd ask Guy the next day, and to his full credit, he actually did. On the way to Parliament, Guy told Love that it shouldn't have happened. He's now unblocked and followed me, but many people have pointed out that for someone who at one point could have been leading the state, it's odd that he would block so many Victorians. And that is 6 News for this Sunday evening. You can stay up to date with all the latest news on our social pages. Just search 6 News A to find us. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.